trip, full of chips, wanna flip, double it.
Welcome to the Full of Chips podcast, the only chips you'll never lose, where the stakes are high, the takes are bold, and the conversations are always full of chips. With your hosts, Chris, the Dice Degen, and Craig from Old Bay Craps. You're tuned in to Full of Chips, the podcast where we dive into our own experiences into the world of gambling and share stories straight from the casino floor. Whether you're a recreational gambler, a seasoned pro, or just curious what the buzz is all about, you're in the right place. Each week, we break down the games, talk to the experts, and bring you tips that could tilt the odds in your favor. So grab your lucky charm, stack your chips, and let's roll into today's episode.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Full of Chips podcast, the only chips you'll never lose, with your hosts, Chris the Dice Degen and Craig from Old Bay Craps. Craig, how are we doing today?
You know, we're doing really well. We've spent the day doing nothing, and sometimes it makes you tired. I think you were saying earlier in a previous conversation we had that you were a little bit tired today from doing nothing. I concur. I've done nothing. Nothing I can think of. But you know what? We've had some amazing views on the shorts that we've been doing, and our last short is doing very well. And you think we're starting to pull some people in, and that's what we wanted to do. We want to pull people in to what we have in our casino experiences. That's why we're doing the podcast. And you know, for some reason, Chris, I feel like I want to be safe and play smart today.
Yeah, that's a good motto to have, I think, for today. We'll find out. We'll find out. Like you, I have done nothing all day. The first thing that I'm really doing today is this. So this is entertaining for me. I actually get to do something for once. I've been sitting on my couch like a bum doing nothing all day, but it is what it is. And I'm looking forward to today's episode because episode 5, right? Good
Yep.
number. We also have a guest on today.
Oh.
We have a guest.
Maybe our title of the episode kind of gave it away of maybe who the guest is, but until they arrive, we'll keep it a secret.
Keep it a secret. I mean, you and I obviously know who it is, but secrets, those are good things. What are you drinking tonight? What's the secret drink of tonight?
You know, I'm drinking nothing at the moment, but later in the episode, I feel like I'm going to have a Crown and Coke.
Nice. Nice.
I could use some water right now.
Go get some quality H2O. What's your water of choice? Do you have a water of choice? I know some people are water snobs.
No, I do not have a water
No?
of choice. I am a Generation X, drink from the garden hose outside growing up. So, no.
No.
I go with the
Okay.
cheapest. I go with whatever the grocery store has for their own grocery brand. I don't go
There you
for
go.
any expensive brand of water or Perrier. Perrier can go fuck itself.
All sparkling water can go fuck itself. You know what I mean? Like
Fuck itself. That's right.
I
Hey, we just
I'm
came
not a
off the first "What the fuck" segment. I'm interested to hear what people have to say about it.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what people think about it. But yeah, sparkling water, I hate it. Like there's no pleasure in drinking sparkling water for me. It's terrible.
No,
It's the
no,
worst
you
thing in
can
the
you can
world.
take your
Like
sparkle and you can hit the road.
yeah, literally. Like if I go somewhere and they offer me sparkling water, like I'm offering them my exit from wherever I am. Like I'm leaving.
Well, you know the drink ladies are giving us the cheapest water at the casinos with their little bottles. So, you know, I don't even think I tip for those. I only tip for the real drinks.
You gotta get your status up and get some Fiji water.
That's right. Get some Fiji. You got to be a plus member to get the
Yeah,
Fiji water. The what is it? The
you gotta get
rectangle
yourself some.
bottle versus the
Yeah, you go.
little pint size. No, it's
Yeah, the
probably
little
not even a
Caesar's
pint.
bottle. It's not even a pint. It's like 2 sips. Like when they give me one, I'm like, can I have 4?
Right.
Equates to 1 bottle.
Or
But
if you have that
anyway,
drink that where the ice melted and now you just have that room temperature water.
oh yeah, tasty.
Mm,
Nothing
mm-mm.
worse. Nothing worse than like hot water or room temperature water, and it's been sitting there for a little bit. Like, ooh,
Hot water for right before you're the one that has to shoot at the craps table. Yeah,
yeah, right.
yeah. Been there,
Oh
done that.
man, I guess that's another top 5 list. Top 5 worst things to drink at the casino. But that's not today's top 5. We'll get into today's top 5 later. But first, we have to get into the meat of today's subject, which is our guest. So let's bring our guest on and let's talk to our guest.
Let's do it.
We've got a man who needs absolutely no introduction, but I'm going to give him one anyway because he deserves one. We have the voice, and that's the voice you hear and instantly trust. A walking, talking encyclopedia of gambling knowledge. He's a mentor, a guide, and the king of the East Coast. More importantly, he is our good friend and a true pillar of the craps world. If you've tuned into any of his shows or heard his opinions, you're already sharper than the average player. We want to welcome in Jeff from Mid-Atlantic Craps. Jeff, how are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing fine, but I'd like to know who you're talking about.
We're talking about you, bro.
Well, an intro, I'm like, hold it, I know one of those guys, but the rest of that crap, I don't know who that is.
Well, I mean, listen, the audience doesn't need to know that. I can't make anybody sound good.
Hey,
You
No,
look
we
good,
like
you
it, though.
sound
We-
good, and you're here.
Yes, sir.
I don't know
yes,
about
sir.
looking
And
good,
we
but I
want-
should sound good.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know Jeff, the king of production over there, that like if Jeff sounds bad, he's sick or something. There's nothing wrong with Jeff's audio ever.
No, there's a reason he's the voice. You don't get
I
the
would not-
the moniker of the voice by having bad audio.
I would not say ever. I've had my moments of recording, that's for sure.
Well, I think everybody's had those, right? Those little snafus sometimes that occur, and you got to go with it. It is what it is. But we want to thank you for coming on. You're our first guest on the Full of Chips podcast. We are very excited to have you on here today and chit chat with you. We have some questions for you, and we already know. And Craig and I were talking about this before that we could say we're going to ask you 2 questions, and it's going to turn into 30 questions because unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the 3 of us can chat like it's nobody's business.
That's true.
So, it may turn into a 3-part interview. Who knows? Just because we like to talk. But no, we're so happy to have you here. And how you been doing?
Fine. I do have to premise this with, did I understand that I'm the first guest you've ever had on this podcast?
Yes, you are.
Wow.
Correct.
When my talent agent signed me up, they didn't tell me it was going to be the first one. I should have asked for more money. There's the first joke.
Wait,
I'm doing good, Chris.
wait.
Jeff,
Craig,
you
you're the
weren't
one that
supposed to say
signed the
anything
contract.
about that. Yeah, but he's not getting paid. You are.
I'm doing good. As you know, I'm not out as much as I once was, but I'm doing pretty good.
Well, we're glad to have you. It's been such a privilege knowing you and becoming friends with you. We mean it when we say mentor. Chris and I were young in this game. He's like got about 1 more year than I do, playing and gambling the way that we are and who we know and getting into the craps community. You've been a mentor from the beginning with us, and we can't thank you enough.
Well, you're certainly welcome. It's nice to see both of you. As you know, we've all become good friends. We're all part of the Atlantic City group. As far as missing talking to both of you, we catch up every once in a while, and it seems like whenever Chris and I get on the phone, hey, Chris, you got a quick minute? And 3 hours later, we hang up.
Well, and see, that's why I'm saying with this, who knows? This episode could be 45 minutes. It could be 45 hours. Like when Jeff's
No,
not
45
joking.
hours. I can't hold it
Jeff
that
and I
long.
get, we can pause. No, I'm kidding. When Jeff and I get on the phone, it's hilarious. It's I gotta run one quick question by you, and then literally 2 hours later, it's like, well, I guess I've held you up long enough. And then another hour later, all right, we really need to get off the phone now. Like we need to get off the phone now.
This is how good Jeff is when you talk to him and you only have one question. You think it's going to be a quick 10-minute conversation and it turns into 2 hours. Jeff is like, I'm walking to my car. Let me open the door. Let me get in here. It might change over to the car's audio, but we'll keep chat as long as you want to chat. And that's how it goes. And 2 hours later, you've had a great conversation and you've just been shooting the shit for so long. And it feels good to catch up and talk to each other. And then, you say your goodbyes and, it may be a while before you talk again, but when you do, it's going to be another 2-3 hour conversation.
Craig, that seems like reminiscence of just the other day, although we didn't talk 2 hours. That same scenario you gave was about a 45-minute talk.
Yeah.
And it's only because Jeff was going somewhere because he's the busiest man I know.
had to pull into the restaurant and get my dinner. Craig knows where I was going.
There you go. No, but yeah, no, we're really happy to have you and be able to talk to you today. And get into obviously we're gambling podcast. So get into a lot of the gambling background that you have, a lot of the knowledge that you've gained throughout the years of gambling in a variety of different games. And because I know a lot of people know you for craps, but we're going to get into some other games that you have played and been a huge part of. So really looking forward to getting into the conversation. So Craig, what are we starting off our conversation with here?
Here we go, man. Well, I mean, this is where it all starts because we're gonna kind of ask you the same beginning question that we asked ourselves in the beginning of this podcast venture that we're on, and that's how did you get into casino gaming, Jeff? And was it something you pursued individually, or did a friend pull you into gambling?
I played poker for a number of years. Even prior to Chris Moneymaker making poker so famous in 2002, I believe it was. I was into poker. I played poker, round table poker, around the table with a couple of fraternal organizations. I went up to Foxwoods in the Northeast and entered a satellite tournament. For $100 that got me a $1,000 seat, which got me a $3,500 seat because there was several of them shared. And that that $100 satellite to a $1,000 satellite to a $3,500 seat paid me off at about $32,000. And I thought I was the king of poker and found out about $32,000 later that I was not.
Isn't that how a lot of gambling stories start? I feel like, everybody starts out with just a nice, easy win, basically. And then it's like, shit, no, gambling's actually hard. Like, it's not that easy.
We talked about that
No.
before when I was talking about how I got into the casino gambling where you win and you come home and you're like, yep, anytime I feel like I need to go to the casino, I just whip out a buy-in, come home with some winnings. And I guess you felt the same way, Jeff, with poker, getting that. And then you said, then it was gone. And that's what happened, right?
Well, it didn't happen that fast. I didn't blow that $32,000 that fast. I came back, 6 or 7 of us in the area. We started running nonprofit organizations, fundraisers, though in charity poker. And I became, I guess, I don't want to say well known because I don't want to sound conceited, but I started running charity pokers for a number of organizations, including 2 that I was very close with. And I got asked to run a local county's fundraiser for a youth sports group for underprivileged youths that couldn't afford equipment to play sports. 11 years later, and $1 million that we raised for them during that 11 years, and the run of poker was over with. So I stopped running those tournaments for them in about 2012. Through that time period, we've had as many as 450 people in the main event. We always ran 3 events during the weekend. And it just seemed to work out good for the charity, and I was very pleased for that. They gave me a nice plaque, which you can't see; it's on the wall back there. But it's, I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I always played poker, even on cruise ships when they had real poker tables with real dealers. Of course, I went to electronic poker games, if you want to call it that. But I always migrated over to the craps table. On the cruise ship and some other table games. I always stayed away from the table games in the casino when I went to play poker. I always heard the hooting and the hollering coming from the craps table. But I guess 2012, 13, 14 on a cruise ship, I played alongside this guy that was playing with green chips, and I played with him 3 nights in a row. And 3 nights in a row he won. And I went up to him on day 2 and I said, hey, can you tell me about this game? And I said, I understand the fundamentals, so don't tell me the fundamentals. I said, how do you do that? And he said, wherever I put a green chip, you put a red chip, and they'll tell you when to put the white chips. And I said, okay. So followed along with him, and I already knew the fundamentals, so I knew how to make the 6 and the 8 right bet. Lo and behold, the next 2 nights I won money. 3rd night he never showed up, and I lost what I won. So needless to say, I never saw him on a cruise ship any longer, and I would tend to believe that maybe he played during the daytime before I got there and lost everything. But honestly, I don't know. I liked the game. I started splitting it in the casinos, going over with small buy-ins, losing every time. What I was doing in the buy-in, I'd have to go back to the cash table in the poker room, win $600 or $700, and come back to the craps table, lose it there until I finally realized that there's a way that you can play this game, craps that is. There's a way that you can play it and there is a way that everybody typically plays it, and the reason why most people lose.
Yep. No, that's a fact, and again, gambling in general is not easy, but craps certainly. There's a lot going on at the table. Very hard game to consistently do well at. Obviously, there are some folks who consistently do well, but definitely a tough game to remain consistent in. So, like when you started out right playing poker, why did you pick poker as opposed to, let's say, blackjack, roulette, any other game? What drew you into poker?
Well, as a young man, many, many moons ago, probably when they had cards made of slate, when I started playing poker, I joined a fraternal organization, and of course they had backroom games. Oh yeah, come on play. It only costs you $20 to get in, and 20 turns into 200 every night. So I started playing poker, and they were playing a whole mix of games. Well, there was this one game that they played that they called Flip Flop, which was very close to Texas Hold'em, and I saw something on TV about Texas Hold'em back in the days of, I can't remember his name right now, tall, thin guy. Sorry, it escapes me. I feel stupid for saying this now, but I saw that, and then I went to Atlantic City probably about 6 months before I went to the Foxwoods, and I actually played cash game poker of a Texas Hold'em. And I liked it, and I came back and researched it and tried to play at home, tried to get those guys to play that way. Neither here nor there. Went on a gambling trip to the Foxwoods, lucked in on the $100 buy-in, lucked in on the $1,000 buy-in. They were giving away a couple seats. I got into that. Almost made a mistake at the bubble. I folded kings, not knowing that I folded kings to pre-flop raises, that it was the right thing to do. But when I got to the final table, we were down to 2 tables. We were playing hand for hand. I folded kings again, and I knew what I was doing that time. And sure enough, I would have lost both those hands had I not folded the kings. And I slid into 9th place, and I went out in 8th place.
Very nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
The money was nice.
Yeah, for sure. No, so I know the flip flop is interesting. I'm gonna have to talk to you about that another time. And Texas Hold'em, is Texas Hold'em your poker style of choice, or do you like any other games, any other variations of poker? Because I know there's a lot of different variations, and some people specialize in all of them.
There's 5-card stud and 7-card stud. I like either one of those. It's a bit different when you think in terms of how you approach the game, but the hands play the same. All the high hands and low hands are the same. And I like the 7-card high-low. So I like to play low poker. And there's a lot of times when we would play that in the fraternal organization, we would play a flip-flop game where you would have a high and a low, and it was always sweet when you could win both ways.
Yeah. They have some the WSOP events now that do that, because we like the WSOP, the main events kind of just ended, and I'm a little bit of a poker junkie, so I'm sitting here, when I'm bored at home watching, these guys battle it out, watching the final tables. Always entertaining. I love poker. I wish I had more time to sit down in a casino and play poker, because you just need a lot of time to play poker.
A good friend of mine went out and played this year and cashed twice. Didn't make big money in Vegas. He spent quite a period of time out there, and now just today I saw at a text group today that he's at Maryland Live playing the Bounty Special Tournament, and he's in the money at, I think it's 18 people, and the money was at 36. So he's in the money. They took a break, and they didn't finish today. They'll actually finish, I guess, sometime in the next day or so.
Nice. Well, we're wrapping up the poker discussion. Do you still play poker at all, or you kind of deviated away from that?
No, very seldom. I play poker when I go to these organizations, and basically I contribute $100 or $200 for the buy-in and just play foolishly like they do. And it's just, the luck of the draw there. There's no skill to it. You can't chase anybody out in those games here locally. I do play. I played with Sweet Lou not too long ago in Atlantic City. We took a break and we went into the poker room there at Harrah's, and I bought it for, I don't know, whatever the maximum is on a 2-5 game. Was that $300-$400, whatever it is?
Yeah. Yep.
Piddled away $100, and I played one other time at the small room now at the Tropicana. I just wasted some time on a 1-3 game while I was trying not to. I waited for the actual people to come down and have dinner and so forth and so on. But I don't play poker as much. Craps is the main game. As you know, I played with you at Blackjack a little bit. I'm not a Blackjack player at all. I'm not of an aficionado like you are, Chris. And although Craig wants to claim to be one now, well, I guess the proof will be in the pudding, won't it, Craig?
Absolutely. So no, you almost did.
Yeah, you
Yeah, you
did.
almost did. The blackjack. I'm getting there. It's been a slow go of it. Only 3 months into playing blackjack, but I'm doing the same thing you did when we start craps, which is you find out you like it and then you just dive into it and you learn everything you can about it.
And don't drop a fortune.
Exactly. So, Jeff, on our previous episodes, Chris and I have talked about handling pressure at the casino, planning casino trips, using the best preparation at home, practicing, and discipline. Which of these stands out to you as the most important, and how did you learn to evolve into a better player at the tables?
You got to understand I'm old, so I don't remember all the four things you said, but discipline, I think, is probably the primary thing.
What is it about discipline that strikes you as maybe a player and versus being a shooter at craps?
Well, from a discipline standpoint, it's very hard for anybody to discipline, and this is where this show just turned into a 4-hour show. No, I'm just kidding. The part that,
Jeff on
that
his soapbox.
no, I'm disciplined in poker. Like I can throw. It's easy for me to throw aces away pre-flop when there's three people raising in front of you. It's simple. It's just easy to do. It's not a big thing. Where it comes difficult in poker to be disciplined is when you know that you have the nuts and somebody's trying to play you, but there's so many other hands that can beat you. So there's plenty of times that I folded there, and although I would have won, it didn't bother me. In this game, if you're not disciplined and you take that whim of the old gambler's fallacy that it's going to turn and something's going to happen, and I'll just go, as you know, on my show, I say the OMT one more time, and it doesn't happen, then you've lost a big amount. Now, in the beginning, I wasn't disciplined. Of course, I was only buying in for $200 or $300, losing every single time, up that to $400 or $500, losing every single time. I made a couple good friends that maybe if you want to talk about them, we can. That kind of changed my philosophy about 3 years ago when it came to this game and playing their style of poker, not at their level, but at their style of poker, of craps, not at their level. And it's changed the way that I play. And I have to be disciplined. Otherwise, my bankroll will go away real quick.
So, Chris, as we're writing this stuff down, that's, fold your aces when people 3 positions ahead of you are betting. Okay, I got to write that down.
But Jeff's more disciplined than me, because if I have aces and I'm getting raised pre-flop, I'm gonna either 3-bet them, 4-bet them, 5-bet them, shove. Like that's what's happening if it's me.
There is a difference between tournament play and cash play. A lot of people don't understand that. In
That's
tournament
true.
play, it's a lot different to do that, Chris. I mean, it really is, because if you got deep pockets and are off on a rebuy, you can bounce right back into it. But cash games, the cash games that I play are typically 10, 15, 25, 50. So, you can't throw a $450 bet that's going to get raised to $750 with 4 callers. It just doesn't make sense to do that. Unless you really think you have the nuts and pre-flop, it's so easy to get away from.
Yeah, that's true. Especially when you're not in the hand for that much, right? Like you might have just called trying to, kind of limp in there and, whatever.
Been in
but,
one of the blinds. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So that it's not too hard to get away from. I don't know. Whenever I have a premium though, it's harder for me to get away from it. Aces obviously is the hardest. But even if I had, like a higher pocket pair or, suited Broadway cards or something like that, it is tough to let go of it. But like you said, though, if you have a bunch of people and then 5 people behind me that are, still to go, it's definitely a lot easier to let go of a maybe not a great, again, they're good hands, but I could be beat so many different ways that it's a lot easier to let that go than just
You
sit
never
there
know
and
until the
really
flop
hope.
comes out. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, the flop can change everything. And even, yeah, I mean, you could have the best hand pre-flop, your percentage looks great, and then the flop comes out and you're, dead. But now you touched on the how you evolved your game of craps and stuff. So I definitely want to dive into that because we're big craps players here, and I feel like a large portion of our audience is craps players.
It kind of revolves around poker because just previous to COVID, I had 2 poker rooms close to me and probably 5 within a 2-hour drive. And both of the locals closed their poker room within a month of each other, pre-COVID now. And I kind of just migrated over to craps to play it more serious. I mean, I understood the fundamentals. I understood the math. I'm a math person, so I understand, what the odds are and, the way that you line the bets up. And so I started playing locally here. Like I said, low buy-in, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there, always losing. My local that's in my backyard, which is just 20 minutes away from me, you both know where that is. They took their craps table out about a year ago, but I stopped playing there because the game was so awful. I would ride an hour instead of riding 20 minutes to go play craps, and I kept losing. And so I turned YouTube on. This is during COVID when there wasn't much to do because everything was on lockdown. And lo and behold, there is this guy named Jeremy on, and everybody knows who I'm talking about. Talk about color up. And I watched a lot of his stuff and talked about strategies, and I saw all these people sending all these strategies. So I didn't even have a table. I didn't have an app on my phone. I had nothing. I had these little pieces of 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper with numbers written on them, 4 through 10, and I would line them up there and play with the chips that I had left over from all those charity poker tournaments I had, which are on my table, by the way, most of them. And I would roll the dice, just randomly roll the dice. And there's times that I decided that Jeremy had shown a couple dark-sided videos. When I say dark side, you know what side I'm talking about, that don't. And so I started fooling around with that, and I had a lot of success of maintaining a bankroll, but not necessarily winning a lot. So I said, you know what? COVID's just about over with. I've been doing this for a while. I've got all this equipment, all these chips, all this stuff in my house. I'll start a YouTube channel. And I did. And I was primarily a dark side player in the beginning. And of course, you and I, we all three of us know our good friend Greg from 555s, who's no longer out there anymore. He and I would have odds over how I was playing. And really, was it hybrid? Or was it dark side? Because, he's a true dark side player. And I always consider the hybrid dark side because you're betting on that side. And, it's like our good friend John says once in a while, you got to pick a side eventually, which is true in hybrid. But I played that, and I did it probably a year and a half of that on YouTube. And I was going to the casino, and I wasn't winning any money, but I wasn't losing as much. But when I did lose, it was a big loss, and I couldn't understand why. So as I continued on with the channel and met a lot of great people in this community, a lot of great YouTubers that I have the utmost respect for, but can't stand their YouTube channel. Chris, this isn't yours. Craig, it's not your channel. So let's put that right out there.
I was gonna say, damn, Jeff, you can't bash me on my own podcast. Come on now.
No, it's not you, Chris. Plus, we're neighbors. So, I went to meetups. I was real big in on Big AZ's group, Lauren's good friend. I went to Vegas several times with those guys. Met a slew of great, wonderful people. Came back, built a following on my channel. Nothing big, nothing small, just where I wanted it to be. I had a great time in doing the YouTube channel, but my craps wasn't progressing anymore. Well, then lo and behold, I met a couple friends of ours that I think you two have talked to 2 of the 3 of them, and Craig, I think you've played with 2 of the 3 of them, but the third one is the one that really changed my mind. Don't tell Ed nor G that I'm not talking about them, because they'll get mad. So cut this part out. Just kidding. Ed understands what I'm talking about, because his style of play is a little different. Our style of betting is almost identical. But El Toro kind of changed my way of thinking when it comes to the game, and it's made a humongous difference from losing to winning sessions in 22, 23, 24, and so far, fingers crossed, in 25.
Well, what do you do differently now than what you were doing before you met El Toro?
Stay home. No, just kidding. I don't want to give anybody any false impressions. I don't want you to think that this is the way to play, because it's not, because it takes a tremendous amount of discipline, a little bit to have some cojones when you put some of those bets out there. But it basically is bring more, win more, higher bets, regress fast. And I know when I say regress, that's not in Ed's terminology, but I've seen him do it. It is in G's terminology, but El Toro, just the way that he explained to me, is I only met the man once. I played with him in the Brownwater Bash a year ago, not this past May, but the June of last year of 24. And we sat at the table, and not only can he bet, he can throw the dice.
Do you think that's because it's, because the average roll in craps is anywhere between 3 and 6 rolls? That you
Bingo.
want to get in, get out?
Bingo. Just
Yeah,
do the mathematics. If you go six in the 36, it's six times. If you think about, you read a MIT book, it's 8.1 or 8.2 is the average roll over the course of what's it like 100,000 rolls or something or other something. It's up there, whatever it is. I don't know. I quit reading those books. But let's just use a philosophy of six. If you can put your money out and get down before that roll of six, or get out of the hand, if you will, that means whatever money you have in there is not your starting money. Then and you can do that consistently and be disciplined. You can win a little bit of money, and on long rolls you can clean up. And where I take the cleanup part to is I bet like Ed does. And when the roll turns into 10 plus, I'm typically making $200, $300, $400 on a roll, and if it's a 20 roller, I've made $1,000, and if it's much more than that, you're walking out a $6,500, $7,000 win.
So you're
I know 100.
you're talking about when it comes to craps that that you kind of know what your expectation is. Did you have the same mindset with playing poker, or was that something that you developed craps only?
Poker was an addiction. I'll tell you that right now. And it took me a while to realize that I wasn't the great player that I was when I won that tournament in the Foxwoods. Playing in the back room with the fraternal organizations, sometimes you win $300, $400. Most time you'd lose $100, $200, playing twice a week and on special occasions like Super Bowl. But when I got into playing cash games, and especially tournament poker, it was more of an addiction, and I didn't have as much luck. My ex-wife, she was a very good tournament player and a horrible cash player. I'm a better cash player and a horrible tournament player. So we would go and play religiously together, both in tournaments that I didn't host or wherever, and cash games. And they would look at her as a female that didn't know what she was doing, and she'd just wipe the floor with them in a tournament. She cashed, not in the big money all the time, but she cashed enough to make it profitable. And on the cruise ship, she just paid for 10 years worth of our cruises just at the poker table.
Especially like when people underestimate you at the poker table, that's one of the best things. And if you can take advantage of it, great. Obviously, just like in pretty much every casino game, you need the cards to be in your favor because, you don't control the cards that are coming out. You can control how you play certain hands and things like that. But the being able to use that to your advantage is really, really important. And especially with the poker, I like how you said that, tournament play is different than cash game play. Very relatable to even like craps, right? Like me going to my local is one thing. Me going to like Atlantic City for a meetup is a different thing, right? I play differently. I am there for the same reason, but different reasons at the same time, right? I'm always there to make money. We've, said this multiple times on a variety of episodes that your goal when you go to the casino should be to make money. Otherwise, I'm not sure why you're going there, right? But when I go to my local, I'm looking to make a certain amount of money and get the hell out of there. When I go to a meetup, right, I'm playing differently because I know I have a lot of different sessions. They might be longer than, I would want them to be just because I'm with a group of people that I want to enjoy and talk to and things like that. So that's almost how I equate, craps to poker in that essence, because those styles of play are very, very different.
No, I mean, you're right. Going to a meetup and going to play craps, let's say with a buddy of yours, won't mention any names, Clay, and actually being profitable at it is one thing, because it's always good to have him at the craps table, because he'll tell me to shut up, but he also tells everybody else around the table that's making distractions to shut up. And distractions don't bother me at the table. You guys know, we won't talk about it here. You know what my one distraction is at the table. But if you go to a meetup, the problem is that you're there for party atmosphere. And there's a couple meetups that I go to that when I go, I'm not buying in for $1,200 to $2,000. I'm buying in for $100 or $200 and just shooting the crap. And if I win the $100, great. If I lose it, I can go with my other best buddy and sit at a blackjack table. Won't mention any names, Chris, but that's how that goes. So there is a difference. We go for these meetups, and that group that we're in takes over the entire table. The atmosphere of party time meetup is gone because the people that are at the table, where our group takes over the whole table for a meetup, has changed, where the etiquette of the game is so much better than it is just with a bunch of yahoos sitting around there, throwing late bets in and buying in the middle of the roll and hollering and partying and high-fiving. So the meetup versus playing locally versus going traveling, like I consider when I travel farther than Atlantic City away from here, I have to watch my money. I have to budget it just like I normally would do when I'm looking at multiple day vacations. But to ride up to Atlantic City to play craps with Sweet Lou and a couple of the other ones one day and ride back, I'm looking to make money. I know what I've taken. When it's gone, it's gone. And I played differently from a standpoint, not from discipline, but from the standpoint of if you're there with a party atmosphere, meet-up crowd. And I don't know if I explained that right. If I didn't explain that right, one of you two chime in.
So, you kind of transitioned for us into kind of our next question, which is, how did the Atlantic City Craps crew, we've heard before a Mid-Atlantic's Craps crew, and is that different? And how did you get the crew started?
I started a Mid-Atlantic's Craps crew before I knew there was an Atlantic City Craps club, craps group, I should say. I was invited to join their crowd. I did not start the Atlantic City, contrary to popular belief, I did not start the Atlantic City Craps group. That was started by a bunch of people there before me, which includes Clay, but I think probably Ted Berry is probably the ringleader there. There's just so many, and we've taken so many people in to that group that are just played with us, and they sit at, like, I'll use Joe for an example. He sat down around the corner, Mr. Five Times, and he played with us day after day, and when he saw us show up, he kind of migrated to our table, took the rear hook level and sat there and put out his 5 times bet. And I don't know, after day 2 or 3, he said, "You guys are awesome. Well, do you all know each other?" From there, it just blossomed into that's how you pick up somebody. You guys came out of YouTube, but you're part of the group. So there's people in the Atlantic City group I don't even know well enough to call them by the first name, but when they're there, it's, shake your hand, how you doing? Let's get serious with the game, the ones that can shoot and that can't shoot. So the Atlantic City group is different than the Mid-Atlantic Craps crew, and the Mid-Atlantic Craps crew kind of fell apart because I started a come play with me, actually it was come play with us promotion, where I brought 2 people in on my YouTube channel to meet us at Atlantic City and play with 6 or 7 other people. And it was successful. Our good friend Joe Ramus won the first year. Not Joe Ramus, I'm sorry. Joe Jonas, Craftsmaster Journey. Joe Ramus would like to come. If he's listening to this, Joe's going to say, "Hey, wait a minute, I didn't come to that." But Joe's Jonas, Craftsmaster Journey, Joe. Yeah, he won the first year, and he contributed back to the donation I do for the Crafts for the Cure each year. But after that, I've had 2 more sessions where I brought somebody in, and I put them up in the room. Thank you, Ted Berry. And I give them like, $300 or $400 to play with and to take them to dinner, and they're there for a night. They want to stay 2 nights. They pay for the extra.
Always giving back, Mr. Mid-Atlantic Craps.
That's what he does.
That's what we say. He gives back, Mr. Mac, just rhymes, all that good stuff. But I want to touch on one thing that you said, because I think it talks to your evolution in the craps game and all that kind of stuff, right? So, like, when we go to these meetups, right, we know who the main shooters are. Right. And I want to talk about this from a discipline strategy type perspective when the crew does get together, because, we like certain spots at the table. Right. A lot of shooters like to shoot from a specific spot. And if you're out of the position that you like to be in, you may not shoot. Right. And it's not that we're telling you, no, you can't shoot. It's just, we want our optimal shooters at a specific position because we know they can perform well due to past performances. From those positions, right? So, you started your craps journey and everything, and then you kind of got into shooting, right? So, like, can you take us a little bit through what made you want to practice, setting dice? Not going to say you're a DI or a dice controller or anything like that. I don't want to have people be like, well, Jeff can call his number. No, Jeff is a very good shooter. He's going to call himself a rhythm roller because I already know it. But what made you get into your the desire to want to better your shooting performance?
I would say it was based upon the fact that several YouTube channels that were randomly rolling the dice that didn't believe in controlled shooting, which there is no such thing as dice control, dice influence, rhythm rolling. So I just started setting the dice. Your good friend Dylan Skill and Luck, he came on my show like every Friday and Saturday night, and he would tell me to use this dice set and shoot from here, and I did. I went from there to constantly using the standard sets that everybody said, "Oh, use this set, it's the best set ever, it'll work for you." And it's not the case. What one dice set does for one player is not going to do the other, because it has nothing to do with the physics of the game, the velocity, the force, the landing zone, and all those things that we could spend hours talking about. But I have played with enough, I would say, I've seen enough that I've played with that when I know this shooter is shooting, I tend to bet more on them. I have more confidence in their ability to shoot. Now, does it always work? No, it doesn't. But I can tell you that I've been at several private meetups where typically the shooter is shooting stick left 1 2 3 possibly, and stick right 1 2 3, and possibly one person straight out. And the people around the table at the private table don't mind that, because you want to get the dice back to the people that have a history, I should say. I shouldn't say probability, but have a history of knowing what they're doing to be able to get the roll above the average of 6. And to anybody that says that there's anything such as dice control, absolutely not. There ain't not a thing. Nobody's controlling the dice. Nobody's calling their shot, although I saw Bo Parker do it 4 times in a row. It just blew my mind. I mean, absolutely just blew my mind. Well, I say 4 times, 4 working sessions, that is. Unbelievable. But there's only a limited amount of people that have that skill, just like people that are professional sports people or whatever. There's only, you got to have a skill. And 99.9% of the people playing this game, even the good ones that think they know how to throw dice, are no good. It's just simple as that. So, you try to get somebody that's consistent above the average roll, and if you get to 8 to 10, most of us that play this game, we're making money. The problem is that with the probabilities, there's, a great chance that you're not going to get to that 6 roll. And if you're out of the hand by the time that happens, or you're at your base level, or you just won't mention any names, Sweet Lou, pull your bets down after you get paid on your 6 and 8, then, you're making money. So my journey started in YouTube. I met a couple people. I sent a video to Ed Robinson over to Roll to Win Craps. He evaluated my throw. And he said, Jeff, here's what I want you to do first off, is I want you to launch from the deck. Do not do that pendulum backswing. I don't care how much you practice. A lot of people compare it to golf swing or bowling or whatever. How much you practice. There's too many variables. There's too many differences there. Launch from the deck. So I started launching from the deck, and I had more consistent hitting the landing zone that way than I did with a pendulum backswing or any other type of, Uri-style grip and throw and, Lord knows, ice tong and several other goofy names for dice throws out there. And from that standpoint, I learned the dice sets, and I learned when I was setting up the dice and I threw, and I saw the result of that dice. I knew what the dice were doing. Now, I also pay attention, and I don't want my dice to reach up to the back wall and hit the diamonds, the alligator, and whatever you want to call it. I wanted to hit at the base of the table. I wanted to hit at the base of the wall where they can't call no roll. I've never had a no roll call that did it that way, but I know some people that have, and they said you have to get it up higher. I would be discouraged and probably cash up and leave at that point, because I am doing what the rules say, and that's hitting the back wall. I'm hitting that rubber stop at the back wall, and I'm watching the dice come off. I watch the left eye because it's easier for me to watch the left eye from where I throw. I throw stick 1 2 3 left, and it's just where I practice from the most, including this table behind me and the old studio in the next room over. To be a dice influencer, it's very difficult to call yourself that, because people think you're influencing the dice to get a result. You're not influencing the dice at all. You're trying to avoid the bad number. Because face it, if we all knew what we could throw and we all threw the bad number, we'd throw the dice down there, pile up the money on the don't, and then throw it so we hit the 7 and walk away, But the whole premise of where you shoot at the table and getting back, if you can't shoot, pass the dice. There's no harm or foul. Everybody wants to throw the dice because that's the gaming mechanism. You have it in your hand. That's the gaming mechanism, and you actually have a gambling game where you can hold the mechanism in your hand and let it go. But I'm not. If I'm out of position, I'll pass the dice. Occasionally I'll shoot from that end, but or from wherever I am. But I don't have any problem passing the dice.
How has your toss changed or evolved? Do you change dice sets per table, knowing you're going to a different casino than another table that you've played before?
Well, I know the tables I've played before. We all know the ones in our area that are, bouncy, hard, semi-hard. So I like wherever I'm throwing from, I have a tendency to pick up the dice and do what I hate at the table. Absolutely, without a doubt, hate it. The first time I'm at a new table, I'll pick the dice up and I'll drop them. And you guys know the ones I'm talking about. That I got to spool them back to the back wall. Can't stand that. I'm not going to say anything other than that, but I'll drop them just to see how they feel and if they're bouncing. And then I'll throw typically I don't throw a drop shot at the back wall unless it's a hard surface table, but I will throw my shot that typically is in the come area to the the field area, depending upon where I'm throwing, and I'm actually bouncing one time over the chips. And yes, I said over the chips, not the chips, but the chips, and into the back wall, and let them lay and die. Doesn't always happen, but if I'm on and I've got 16 or 17 rolls where 13 of them are that way before I 7 out, I've made money, a decent amount of money at the way I play.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one thing that, being able to play with a consistent group regularly, and consistent people regularly is helpful for that. Because, you kind of know when you're on, right? I know when you're on. I can tell when you're off because I've played with you enough. And it makes it nice because, it adds to one, the experience of gaming with those individuals, but then also like it can help you dictate almost your betting style and what you want to do. Craig and I have referenced it before where when Craig knows I'm throwing horns, there's probably more coming. Right. So he's going to start maybe doing something with the horns. Same thing with Mr. World Bet. That's going to be Craig's new name. We're going to have to change it from Old Bay Craps to Mr. World. And don't get that confused with Pitbull. He's not Mr. Worldwide. It's just Mr.
All right.
No, but it's nice to have, that consistency because, like you said, right, you're trying to get out of the hand and you're trying to make your money. And, when our crew is playing and, we know what to expect from those individuals based off, the past experiences and stuff. So it makes it nice for that because, if I know Jeff's on, I know what numbers he's hitting, right? If I know Craig's on, I know what numbers he's hitting. And that can help me to do that regression, right? That goes back to the discipline aspect of the game because, some people say, oh, you're afraid. That's why you're regressing. No, I'm actually being smart, right? And at least I think I'm being smart to regress down. I'm out of the hand, and now I'm playing with quote-unquote house money. Yes, I know it's my money technically, but I'm playing with money that I made, so now I can continue to press and really go for it. But without that consistency and knowing those shooters, it's definitely a lot tougher, right? And I think that's why sometimes the play style changes even from going to a local where I know those individuals versus when I go to Atlantic City and I'm playing with, the AC Craps crew or other individuals that, I know. I've played with them enough to know or have an idea of what they're going to be doing and how their dice are going to be performing at the craps table to know, all right, maybe I should ease in on them. Maybe I shouldn't be betting as high as I may want to, or vice versa. Their toss is looking good. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to bet a little bit more. As you said, right? It doesn't always work, but more often than not, it will work enough that I can at least get out of the hand. I may not make a ton of money, but I can get out of the hand. But like you said, when you start hitting those double digits, I'm ready to pounce, right? And I'm ready to start really pulling that money back in. And then, if we get nice rolls in the 20s or 30s, right, we're starting to 4 zeros on the color up. We're starting to get, nice return back. And a lot of that comes from experience, right? You might get lucky, with one individual at a casino who just goes on a heater and hopefully you're there for it and hopefully you can capitalize, but you can't expect that all of the time. You can't expect that most of the time.
Well, there was a couple things that you said, and I'm so old I can't remember both of them. But what I'll say here is the people that play this game, the players that are looking for that once in a lifetime roll, or once in a session roll, or once in a vacation trip roll, you might want to have to take 3 or 4 vacations before you see it because the amount of rolls that reach the 50s is just so minute. The 40s is so minute. The 30s is okay once in a while. The 20s we see all the time in our group. I mean, it's regular to see that in our group. The teens you can see from anybody, whether they're random rolling. And let me premise this: the longest roll I've ever had on the table, not me, but I playing with, was somebody that was just shaking and baking them. And it seems like that's what you hear all the time. But that shaker and baker, that was a once in a lifetime roll that they had versus I played with a couple of people that are constantly in a session of, hour or 2 session. They're constantly in the teens and 20s. And I don't need anything above a 10 to make money. I mean, I can make money 8 to 10 easy. It's just how much more money am I going to make? And if it gets into the 20s and the person looks like they're off on their landing zone, or the dice aren't acting right, or maybe some fool at the other end won't move the chips out of the way. There is absolutely nothing wrong with regressing down to wherever you want to come down. You know, if I started with 330 and my base is 110, if I started at 330, came down to 110, and let's just say I'm back up to, I don't know, maybe a $1,200 of chips on the table. There's nothing wrong with coming down to 160 and starting all over again. If the roll ends, hey, you're a genius. And if it doesn't, you just make a little bit more money instead of a lot more money.
You know, if you get somebody who's hitting a lot of inside numbers and it's a long roll, like a 20 roller, and then you start to see they just hit a 4, now they hit a 10, so they're starting to hit outside numbers, and now they've hit a couple of horns. You're like, you know, it seems like the direction is changing, right? What's rolling is changing, and if you have to read the table, you have to read the table of what's happening so that you can make those decisions to regress, and that's kind of an indicator to you that it's not going the way it was in the beginning of this long roll. It's probably a good time to regress just in case.
Well, you know, the numbers that are hitting, we can get into talk about trend betting. And it seems like everybody's explanation, because they want to go by Webster, as to what trend betting means. And it means different things to different people. And in the small group that I have very successful history playing with them, just because you have 5 nines in a hand, is that a trend? Well, okay, it might be. What happens if it comes back around to the dice and that guy has 9 nines in that hand? Yeah, that's definitely a trend. And so there's a difference between, some people think a trend happens per hand, per session, and I disagree with them. You know, I bet the numbers that are hitting. I don't full press, or I don't make abnormal bets. You know, I'm always collecting something. And once I'm up, let's say, you know, $500-$600 in a hand, there's absolutely none whatsoever. There's no reason to regress, move back. Now, it's always nice to regress, because then when the 7 comes the next time, you're a hero, like I said a while ago. But there's absolutely none, because if that hand turns into be one of those lifetime chances, man, you're going to get the table max, and you're going to be really happy that you did that. But the question is, well, look at all the money you left on the table. And there's a couple people I had to teach that don't worry about the money you're left on the table, because if you hadn't had the bets to get you there, you would have never been there in the first place. So if you want to regress, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to make serious money, it's to continue to press the numbers that are hitting. And if the shooter is on, chances are from the 4 to the 10, you've got multiple bets on each one. I mean, how many times have we played, and let's not talk about the ATS. Let's say a 6 or 8 never rolled one time in a 20 roller, but the 4s and 10s and the 5s and 9s were on fire. You know, I've had my 8 sitting at $30 and $300 on the 4 and 10 just because they rolled so many times.
Yeah,
I mean,
it happens
that may not be the way
actually
to play,
frequently.
Yeah.
No, it happens a lot, and that's why you know, a lot of people, like, and I think you're probably one of the bigger proponents of the bet what's hitting concept, right? But like, in all honesty, if you really want to make money, that's what you have to do, right? And like you said, there's been numerous sessions where playing with somebody who is just pounding the 5 and 9. Why would I press my 6 and 8 when they're pounding the 5 and 9? I'm going to keep pounding that 5 and 9, right? And that example that you exactly just said, I was on the table for a 30 roller, right? Happy to be there for it. My 6 never went above $30. Why? It was hit once in 30 rolls. It was hit once. And, other people, I'm not faulting them for it, but it's how they play that, they're trying to pile their money on other numbers, and they were pressing everything. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, right? But why not just press the number that's hitting, right? If they're going to keep rolling 5s, bet the 5. You're an idiot if you're not betting the 5.
Well, I think what you're getting into, Chris, is that if you're having a 20-plus roller, you're hitting repeaters. So what repeaters are you hitting? And if you're not pressing your bets, or you're not reducing your bets on something that's not hitting versus something that is repeating, what are you doing?
Well, let's
speak to
look
that.
at what you said, Craig. Let's look at what you said. You said repeaters. Now, we're not talking about the repeater bet on a table. I mean, that's sweet if you have it in your area. But if somebody's hitting repeaters, what are they really doing? They've set a trend.
Yep. And see, that's the thing with yeah, exactly. And that's the reason why a lot of us even practice the whole dice influence and setting dice and stuff, is to have dominant numbers that we know we can throw, and also to be able to go back to what Jeff said earlier with, You're trying to reduce the amount of sevens that you're throwing. You're not trying to throw a 40 roller every time. And like you said, right, I'd rather be on the table with somebody who is going to consistently throw teens and 20s, because there's a lot of people who do that, as opposed to the one person who's going to PSO 40 roller, PSO, right? Because that's what's going to ultimately make me the money, is those consistent rollers, not the one person who caught lightning in a bottle and boom, now they're like, they had a god roll, and then, did I make enough money on that to counteract the sevens that are going to come to follow them? But, again, when we play with consistent people, right, we know that they might be throwing this number. The other nice part about it too is, Craig said it earlier, where like once the numbers kind of start disappearing and some other things come up, all of us are self-aware enough to know that our toss may not be on as it was. And what do? We warn everybody. Listen, something's happening here. I'm not telling you I'm going to throw the 7, but I don't like what I'm seeing right now. Right? I mean, Jeff, how many times have we been at the table and you're sitting there, that dice kick that way, or did it drift a little bit with my landing zone off a little bit? And again, from playing with certain individuals, we know, all right, this is your landing zone. Once you start deviating from that landing zone, I know that something's up, because you're usually very consistent in getting in that exact landing zone. So once I start seeing that, that's like a warning sign in my head. All right, now it's time to regress. Again, going to leave money out there because I'm going to try to maximize and hope you can fight through it and continue on with the roll. But I'm happy with where I'm at. And that's the thing. A lot of people are just not happy with what they've made, and they get greedy. And when greed takes over, it's usually a bad sign and a bad thing for you, especially in the casino.
And never chase your loss.
Thank you for tuning in to part 1 of the Full of Chips podcast interview with Jeff from Mid-Atlantic Craps. As always, Jeff's information can be found down in the description below, along with links to his YouTube channel, Mid-Atlantic Craps, and his website, midatlanticcraps.com. In part 2 of our interview with Jeff, we talk about Jeff's feelings on the martingale, some times we've had at the tables, and some crazy stories from our Atlantic City and Vegas trips. So stay tuned for part 2 of our interview with Jeff from Mid-Atlantic Craps. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback that you would like to give the Full of Chips podcast, you can find us on all the social medias that are linked down below, as well as at fullofchipspodcast@gmail.com. We appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you for part 2.